and welcome to the Tao of Our Understanding Recovery Podcast. In this podcast, we discuss mystical works of literature and how they relate to recovery. We hope you enjoy today's podcast episode.
Hello, this is Buddy C. Welcome to the Tao of Our Understanding Recovery Podcast. Today we have Brian and Drew and Lou and Oscar. Good to have you guys today. If you go to buddyc.org, I try to talk about one benefit or one resource that we have for you there. We have some Google Calendars in the resources that some of you might like. Actually, we have a couple of them in the episode notes of most every podcast. One's a Course in Miracles daily calendar. It's a Google Calendar that you can import, and you'll have the daily reading. I have a second one that is a daily thought for the day that I did first. I did those for me, and then I decided, why not share them with some folks? Those are things I use every day. So you can see those in the episode notes. Those two are in all the episode notes. So that's just one thing. A lot of other things at buddyc.org if you want to check it out if you're new. Okay, today we will be discussing the story from the Chuang Tzu as interpreted and translated by Thomas Merton. We're just starting in this book, I think, the third story? The Breath of Nature, pages 38 and 39 for those of you who are following along at home. Drew, now last week we went through this whole deal with this hat and salesman. Went all over the place, and last minute you told us what it was about. You want to go ahead and tell us on this one, or do we need to go through it first?
I haven't read it yet.
Okay,
but,
all right. So you're with us at the moment. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I was just listening to that, Drew. I thought maybe I didn't know if you even needed to read it. Just maybe you would tell me.
Drew nailed it last week, which is good. Okay. The breath of nature. When great nature sighs, we hear the winds, which, noiseless in themselves, awaken voices from other beings blowing on them. From every opening, loud voices sound. Have you not heard this rush of tones? There stands the overhanging wood on the steep mountain, old trees with holes and cracks, like snouts, maws, and ears, like beam sockets, like goblets, grooves in the wood, hollows full of water. You hear mooing and roaring, whistling, shouts of command, grumblings, deep drones, sad flutes. One call awakens another in dialogue. Gentle winds sing timidly. Strong ones blast on without restraint. Then the wind dies down. The openings empty out their last sound. Have you not observed how all then trembles and subsides? You replied, I understand. The muscle of earth sings through 1,000 holes. The music of man is made on flutes and instruments. What makes the music of heaven? Master Key said, something is blowing on 1,000 different holes. Some power stands behind all this and makes the sounds die down. What is this power? So the master's asking, what is this power? He's not saying what the power is. I've noticed in a lot of Zen writings, it's funny, they don't label what is as being God for the most part. I've just noticed this over the years I've been studying with them. If you ask them point blank, is there a God, they'd say no. But every book we've read, every study, I would say 95%, they'll acknowledge this as something. There's something. And so they acknowledge there is some power, and they call it something. That's what reminded me of it. Something is blowing. Some power stands. So let's go back to the beginning. We know where we're heading. It's titled The Breath of Nature. It reminds me, too, of the Hebrew word for God, if properly pronounced, is the breath, is to sound like the breath. So, in other words, the first thing you do when you come into this world is say the name of God. And the last thing you do when you leave is say the name of God. We would say Yahweh, but that's way off. It's supposed to resemble the breath. It's what I was always told. And if it's the breath of nature related to our breath, we can't live without our breath. That's probably out of anything that we need to live is the breath, more than I think most anything else. First to come, last to go. No matter what else is externally, no matter what else is there or impeding us or killing us. So this is the breath of nature. Now, I know the heart beats on a little bit and the brain stays for a little bit, but just keeping it simple. Okay, so this is the breath of nature. So it's essential for nature. When great things sigh, we hear the wind. We talked about wind a few weeks ago, about how we can't see the wind or know where it's coming from or control it or what. It comes and goes. We can sense it. Nature sighs and we hear the wind. It's almost like fruit of the sighs. Then he asks, have you not heard the wind of nature, making us aware? But if I'm in the moment, the first thing I usually lose in the moment if I'm outside is the awareness of a breeze. That's the first thing I lose. If I get caught up into something, the breeze can keep going. That's, I would say, probably the first thing, if not one of the first, that I don't pay attention to. So to notice nature, we have to be aware. We have to be in the moment. We have to be still. And it ends up being loud voices sound. So once we start hearing it, we get more attuned. Okay, so he starts out with the wind in the first paragraph or the first stanza. If y'all have anything, just interrupt me. Okay, the second one, he's doing a little more descriptive in a different way. There stands the overhanging wood on the steep mountain, old trees, now holes and cracks. So we're seeing things. Snouts, maw's ears, grooves in the wood, hollows full of water. You're still hearing. Now you're hearing sounds. First, you were noticing the wind, right? You hear mooing, roaring, whistling, shouts of command, grumblings. The place where we do our retreats, our meditation retreats, there's a stream there, and we'll be meditating. Sometimes I swear there's something out in the stream stomping around. And I would swear there's something there. It sure does sound like it. But our ears can deceive us sometimes with that. Oscar?
Yeah, thank you. Somewhere it resonates as when I go for a walk in a forest, sometimes I can experience this openness for all details in the manifestations which the forest is. So the wind and the trees and the animals. And it's like this first two verses reflect the manifestation of nature, the manifestation which nature is. But I think we have to keep these last two lines of it in mind. So what is the power it all comes from? Yeah, I know. So you walk through the forest, and sometimes you see all the different things, like all the separation and the fragmentation, and sometimes you see the whole thing without losing contact with the details, but you experience it, or I experience it as a complete one thing, and then there's no separation, and then it's more like I walk into the breath of it, into the source of it. into the source of nature. Maybe it is the stillness. You mentioned stillness a couple of minutes ago. Sometimes you experience this stillness in nature, and at the same time experiencing the complete manifestation of it. So the question here, I think the question could be, what is this power behind all these details? And then the answer would be, kind of intellectual answer would be nature. So the nature is the force behind all the details. In all the details together are nature. So it's the manifestation complete. The complete manifestation in its whole is the source in itself. Or is there a source behind it where it's all coming from? Or both. So when the Tao is the source of everything, right? It's the one thing. So everything is coming from the Tao. And the nature is Tao manifested. In the end is one thing. Maybe same with Thomas Merton, also like the mystical experiences of non-duality. So then, God and its manifestations are in the end the same, one and the same thing. Because all is one, so there can't be God. And there can't be manifestation. It's, as soon there's God and manifestation, there's duality. I sense, to be short,
Too late.
I sense a kind of non-duality question in it.
Yeah, that's good. I hadn't thought about it. When you're ready, lay it on us, Drew. Just let us, have at it. Okay, so the first one, it's wind. The second, we're starting to see things, but we're not seeing what is really there. It says that we see snouts and ears and goblets, and would that be goblins? I don't know. Just all kinds of things. If you've ever been out in the dark, you can see you can make things out of all kinds of shadows. Most fearful times in the woods is a full moon. See all kinds of things that aren't there. So we're not seeing clearly, or that's what I'm gathering from that. Then it moves to hearing. We hear mooing and roaring and whistling, command, grumblings, flutes. We're not hearing clearly either. I guess there's not much of a way to misinterpret the wind, is it? You just sense it or not. One call awakens another dialogue. Gentle winds sing timidly. Strong ones blast without restraint. Then the wind dies down. The openings empty out their last sound. Have you observed how all then trembles and subsides? This is the master asking the student, master being key and the student being you. Why you? So you replied, he messed up here. He said, I understand. What's the Tao quote for that? If you think you understand, you've lost the solution, something to that nature. What is it? I'm just going through the Tao Te Ching right quick. The Tao is like bellows. It's empty yet infinitely capable. The more you use it, the more it produces. The more you talk about it, the less you understand. Lou.
But when I was reading this, it sounded to me like the wind or the Tao hitting all of these different kinds of things in the trees and in nature. It hits the cracks in the trees, it hits the little hollows, all these little permutations of possibility. The wind goes through it, and I had the thought of the Tao going through people and nature, but going through people, and it sounds different coming from some or coming from others. The spirit, the Tao, moves through everyone and produces something else, or that the shape of that, the contour of what it comes in contact with is different, and it might appear or sound or change differently than what I do or other people do or nature does, but it's all coming from the same source, and together it can produce any number of things depending on how it moves through or what it comes in contact with. So that's where my feeble mind went.
That's good, Lou. Thank you. I found a couple of verses. The more, the less you understand. That's from 47. Doesn't say, I think he just jumped up and replied immediately. The student did. I understand. And he's got it figured out. The music of the earth sings through 1,000 holes. The music of man is made on flutes and instruments. What makes now, is that you replying with his answer? I guess it is, isn't it? Yeah. Okay. What makes the music of heaven? So he's got the music of earth, the music of man, and then he says the music of heaven. So both the music of earth and man are something physical that we see. And the master says something is blowing on 1,000 different holes, like the music of heaven, I think is what he's describing. Some power stands behind all this and makes the sound die down. What is this power? What is this power? First of all, just acknowledging that there's something I don't understand. First of all, and that what I can see physically, there's a wind that whistles through all of this. There's things I see that I don't see correctly, things I hear that I don't hear correctly. Back to some of what you were talking about, Lou, and that there's there's never a situation that I see entirely correct. I don't think. So in my life, I don't see things clearly. I don't hear things clearly. So really a question I could ask myself is, what's behind this? I know that when I'm upset, the real question isn't why am I angry or why am I sad or why am I whatever emotion that I'm feeling. The real question is, what am I afraid of? That's the something that's behind in that situation. There's something behind everything. On the second step, I've been thinking about this and I verbalized it once. It's going to sound pretty, I don't think it's going to sound, I can always delete it if it doesn't. Came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. I always thought that was talking about God or my perception of God. Isn't that what we teach or implied in the program? That's talking about God, right? That's what I interpret it as. And I started realizing almost everything's greater than me, not just what I would believe to be the something if I'm making that separate. But out of all of that, can I allow things that are greater than me change me? Can I surrender in whatever's going on so that I can be restored? Because if I'm in a situation and I'm getting upset because I'm hearing things that aren't there, somebody says something to me and I interpret it differently, or I interpret it in a way that is coming from a place of fear, and I start getting angry, or they're not doing what I want them to do. So as an employee and they're not doing what I want them to do, I still have a tendency to do this, but not as much. Get angry rather than just accepting the situation and dealing with it, which I can do with or without anger, but I'm not seeing entirely correct. In that situation, I just have to surrender to what's going on, not ask a God that I may believe in to change me. I've got to change right in front of me. There it is. Can I allow that situation to rub across me like water on a stone? Can I just allow that to roll over and keep rolling so it smooths me out? That's how it works. It's not that I pray and I'm changed. I surrender and I'm changed. I quit the fight. We stop fighting anything and anyone, even alcohol, right? Was that page 84 in the big book talking about the 10th step? Yeah, if I'm in a situation and I'm disturbed, I'm upset in some way, first of all, I can handle any situation without the upset. I don't have to be upset ever. Actually, whatever the situation is, it doesn't help the situation by me being upset. I have a difficult time thinking clearly when I'm angry or whatever the emotion I may be experiencing. So what if I acknowledge in everything that this is not the way that I think it is? Back to my Karen Casey Course in Miracles question. Can I see this differently? Can I see this differently? When the master doesn't give an answer, he doesn't say, I understand. Do you notice that? The master doesn't say he understands in any way. Anytime I've gone in a situation that I thought I had the answer to, I would not be open to others' opinions, and I would miss a solution that I wasn't seeing.
But I can't quite put my thoughts on it, but some of what you're saying in terms of how we can see it differently harkens for me back to the hollows and the gouges and the snouts. You hear the mooing, or you hear this, or you hear that, and it's like whatever it's in your nature or in your common sense of being in the world, you hear things or you produce things or you sense things that are consistent with that. But if you smooth out the rough edges, the holes, and the gullies, and then it's the shouting, and the other is over there, and the wind can just blow by you without a lot of turmoil and trumpets and that kind of thing.
Yes, Lou, thank you. Yeah, it's a reversal, right? Can we be settled enough that all we do is notice the breeze? Oscar?
Yeah, thank you. The more I listen to you guys, the more I think the answer to the question is stillness and silence. So there is stillness always, no matter how hard the sound is, how loud the sound is, there's always stillness behind it. And it's the only thing that can make the sounds all die down. And it's of an enormous power. And also in the metaphorical way of me being in my head and making interpretations of everything I hear, everything I see in my wild head. And beyond this, there's always silence. And I really learned by 12 steps going back to the silence, like literally pausing when emotions come up or my frantic thinking comes up. I know it's a red flag and I have to pause and sit down and go to the silence. So there's a huge spiritual strength in silence, which before I started or was given the 12 steps, it was a scary thing. And I still see it with a lot of people. They are scared of silence. So in conversations, people are scared of silence. So silence seems to direct us to emptiness, and we are very scared of the emptiness. So maybe the answer is emptiness. Could also be silence and emptiness, and my head makes it scary.
Hey, Oscar, also, if you look at what the master said, he said something's blowing on 1,000 different holes. And that something, first I was thinking of that something as being the higher power, but he separates it. He says something's blowing on these holes. Then he says some power stands behind all this and makes the sounds die down. The stillness that you were talking about, Oscar. What is this power? Yeah, it's a reversal back to the wind, back to the breeze. At that point, at the beginning, you weren't taken away by what you saw or what you heard. You just felt the wind. It says we hear the winds. There'd be some hearing, but for me, it's feeling a lot too. Feeling is in on my skin, feeling. Notice this. What is this something? What is this power? I don't want to. Wait, Drew, give us the answer before I go on. Do you have it?
No, every time I think I understand what
Escapes you.
this verse is trying to say, y'all add something that makes me realize I'm not looking at it the right way. So, no, the only understanding I have is from what I've been hearing y'all say.
What if this power is just the present moment? Oscar?
Maybe something like that. We could find in the second stanza, the end of it, there it also touches it. So it says, then the wind lies down. The openings empty out their last sound. So then there's silence. And then comes another question. Have you not observed how all then trembles and subsides, which is a kind of awareness of consciousness, right? Which is the same as awareness of the present moment. So maybe you're right, and it's the present moment as always. But it's the
It's
same as
always
silence.
it's always being the observer. That's always
Yeah.
the answer. It doesn't matter what we read. It's always like I learned to, when I was first hanging around with my Zen folks, they'd give some big thing. I said, is it really? And not say nothing else. And they'd just go spinning. I'm sorry. I like screwing with them. Yeah. If we're in reverse on this, if I think something's something that's not there, am I really in the moment? No, I'm off in what I think this is. But if I get back to the breeze, that's the place of non-duality, the place of the moment. The more I walk this walk, I think everything is coming back to the present moment. That's what observation does, is gets us to the moment. That's what compassion does, gets us to the moment. Fear always takes us out of the moment. And that's a lot of these things I'm seeing here that they're hearing incorrectly or seeing incorrectly are fear-based, aren't they? Snouts and maws and ears, roaring, commands, grumblings. That's all fear, I think. If you guys have another interpretation, please speak up. Brian?
Buddy, when you mentioned fear, I was thinking about that comment in the big book, and I'm not exactly sure how it goes. I butcher it, but it was talking about a magical mind. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I do.
That all the things that fear can just start building on themselves in our mind, and then we're seeing the ears and the snouts and teeth.
The magic magnifying mind, I think it is.
Yeah, the magic magnifying mind. I call that my catastrophizer.
That's on page 420. I must keep my magic magnifying mind on my acceptance and off my expectations, for my serenity is directly proportional to my level of acceptance. When I remember this, I can see I've never had it so good. Thank God for AA. Another way we could look at this, am I looking for fear behind every tree in my life? Am I looking for the half empty rather than the half full? Gratitude's a great tool for that, for me. Because if I can have a gratitude list when that fear is coming on, oh, no, I don't need to be afraid of this. I can see how the situation similar has happened in the past and it's worked out. Why would I be afraid? Why would I not think it would work out now? So a little gratitude will really help me. And I have several gratitude lists. I have a financial one and I have some others. And I'll go to that gratitude list if I'm having that particular fear. I say, oh, yeah, back on this date. And I'll write it. I'll put it all. I got it in Google Keep and I have a note for each one. And I'll add stuff to it as things come along. Oh, yeah. You forget those things when you're in the middle of it. I forget how I needed to pay salaries at the end of the week. This is years ago. And I received a check that I wasn't expecting at all for several $1,000s on a Tuesday when I needed to pay salaries on Friday. So things like that have happened. And I think, why am I worried now? It's always worked out. I've done things like I had a huge bill to pay, 20 plus grand. This was years ago. I had a house that a rental house I was going to have to sell. And it had a lot of rehab. It had some rehab to do. I went over to the house. I actually I put my hand on the house and I said, God, I need this house to sell. I've got to pay these bills. I think the next day, it was very soon after, someone put a contract on the house, but the only caveat was we had to be finished with the rehab and closed by the end of the month. That's when I needed the money. So I've had those things happen lots of times. So I keep a gratitude list of that stuff, dates and detail. So I can go, oh, it's happened in the past. I know I'll be okay. Yeah. Can I see this differently? Can I not allow my fear to take me off into things that aren't real? Now, what's the easiest thing for me to do? Let's say I'm out in the woods with someone and I'm getting afraid and those fears are coming on. I just encourage the person I'm with. Or if I'm not with someone, I always know someone who has those same fears. I can pray for them. That's what page 84 shows us in the big book. We know that for alcoholism, nothing immunes us from a drink so much as working with another alcoholic. Same thing. Getting the focus off of ourselves and onto someone else that we can help. Yeah, I'm doing it for a reason. And sometimes those motives are impure when we start, and there's always a degree of impurity, I think. But the whole idea is to get the focus off yourself, a way I can step out of the way. Can I just get back to the place that I'm just observing, that I'm present? So what is this power? I think it's doing the things that get us back to the present moment. If I'm in the moment, really, if I'm in the moment, even in a negative situation, what I need to deal with right now in this second is much less than taking the whole situation on. Like when my son passed, and let's say it's before the funeral, I don't have to, if I'm sitting there taking all of that on and a year from now and his baby that's 7 months old, all those things, then it's very difficult, almost impossible for me to do. But, okay, right now, what do I need to deal with? This very moment. And if you keep that in the moment, the things we have to deal with are so much less. I think that's how we were designed. I think that's the real reason for all spirituality, is to get us into the same place that nature is in most, I think all animals. There may be some that have a little higher intelligence, but just get back to the present moment, because that's all I'm designed to handle is the moment. That's what acceptance is all about. Can I be where my feet are? How do I know I'm not? Start getting disturbed in some way. Start losing my peace. When that starts happening, I'm not in the moment. So what is perfection? I think it's being present more moments of the day. How can I observe? How can I be empty? How can I notice the breeze unless I'm in the moment? Yeah. I'm disappointed in you, Drew.
I have nothing to add to any of this.
I'm just messing with you,
This has
man.
been great to listen to.
You're easy to pick on. Plus, you're in Texas and I'm in Alabama, so I don't have to worry with it. But yeah, it's these stories you really have to sit with a little bit. Sometimes they're just dead on. You can see them very easy from miles away. But some you really have to sit with. You have to do what this story's saying. Observe, approach it from a place of not understanding. How can I see this differently? Thank you, guys. Anything to add?
Buddy, I was thinking about that sign you said that you have, and I have one on my little picture in my closet that says, I do not know.
Yes. Yeah, I used to have in my old house, I called it the Wall of Tao, and had all these quotes that were all over the wall. And it was all of those. I've got those somewhere, but I don't have anywhere here to put them all up. I could put up a few. Yeah, that was good. That was when we were first starting to study the Tao. So I had 20, 30 quotes on the wall all across. Reminded, and when I sat at my desk, they were all there.
Mm-hmm.
I need to do something with that. I do have one on my phone I like. The highest good is not to seek to do good, but to allow yourself to become it. Allow yourself to become it. Okay, guys.
All right.
If that's it, you guys have a great week, and we will see you next week. Thank you. Hello, this is Buddy C. I wanted to make you aware of several recovery-related resources that I've posted in the episode description. These resources include a list of recovery podcasts, a free sober meditation app, daily recovery email, shared Google recovery calendars. Hope you put some of these resources to use and have a great week.
Thank you for listening to the Tao of Our Understanding Recovery Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with your friends in recovery.